Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Crypto News Podcast. It's your host, Matt Zahab, and we are buzzing as always. The first episode that we are recording live from beautiful Buenos Aires, Argentina. Folks, if you haven't been to this place, highly recommend it. It is absolutely incredible. Literally, the architecture is stunning. It's a mix between like Mexico City and Paris. The food is all world. If you like eating steaks like myself, probably the best beef I've ever had in my life. And it's very reasonably priced. It is a lot more expensive than it was earlier this year. From friends that were there, they told me prices. It's about triple that. It's still very reasonable and definitely not like where Veronica is located or where I am located, usually in Toronto, which is way too expensive. But this pod isn't about me. It is time for the intro and the start of the show. Today we have Veronica McGregor coming in hot today, serving as the Chief Legal Officer for Exodus. She's been there since January 2022. Prior to joining Exodus, Veronica was the Chief Legal Officer of ShapeShift from 2018 to 2021, where she managed in-house legal and compliance functions, global legal strategy, governmental relations, and regulatory affairs. Prior to that, she was also a partner at Goodwin Proctor and Hogan Lovells, where she specialized in assisting companies to navigate state and federal laws and regulations related to digital assets, among other things. Now she is moving and grooving in the law X crypto space, but trying to get her on for a hot minute as she has a plethora of knowledge and one of the few people who are literally an expert in the law/crypto field. Veronica, super pumped to have you on. How are you doing this lovely afternoon?
I'm good. It's very nice to be here, Matt. I'm in the Bay Area. It is raining quite a bit.
Oof.
So
I'm looking out.
So I'm happy to be indoors.
I'm looking outside my window, and it's the opposite in down here in Buenos Aires because we're so far south.
Sure.
Yeah, in the equator. Yeah. Our winters are their summers and vice versa. So it's been about 25 Celsius Correct. All day. It has been lovely. So I'm a happy guy. But let's jump into this year. Before we get into all of the regulatory stuff and obviously the massive Trump win, which has had a crazy moonshot on everything crypto related, how and why did you jump shift from, working in regular law to crypto law? What in particular sort of interests you about crypto? Again, you didn't have to do this. You were clearly an absolute shooter in the regular Web 2 world. You wanted to jump to the Web 3 world. Tell me why you made the jump.
Actually, it might surprise you to know that I've been talking about and in crypto since 2011. I did a lot of public speaking and I did a lot of speaking at the American Bar Association on the subject of payments. I've always been a payments lawyer my entire career. And when new technologies and payments would come out, I would give talks on them and educate the other lawyers. And so I became like the weird new thing girl. And when the weird new thing in payments came out, I would be the person to talk about it. And if it was, at one point, Google Glass, where people had glasses, they could film everything. And that was, people were talking about payments and that. About 2011, someone asked me about Bitcoin. And so I had to figure out about Bitcoin. It wasn't crypto, it's just Bitcoin. And there was basically no law. And unfortunately, we're almost still where there's no set law and rules of the road, 13 years later. But anyway, so I'd been in crypto for a lot longer than just being at ShapeShift.
Interesting. And that first one back in 2011, like how did you even go about helping out your client, he or her? How did you even help them when there was literally nothing to do?
Oh, and there were also no clients. I was giving talks on a subject that there was no practice in because there were no clients. But again, it was the weird new thing and it was new technology and it had to do with payments. And so therefore I learned about it and basically spent time educating bankers and lawyers on what the technology was, what it could do, what it couldn't do, and other potential use cases besides payments that people saw coming down the road, which have come to fruition, many of them, and just learning about the tech in anticipation of the fact that there would be a practice, there would be companies that would need legal assistance. But again, there was no practice, there was no law, there was just Bitcoin. So I decided to learn about Bitcoin. That gave way to other stuff.
That's wild. Wow, what a story to kick things off. And here we are, fast forward 13, 14 years down the road. And I mean, heck, we hit almost 95K today, which is absolutely wild. Almost there. I'd like to sort of parlay this next bit into Exodus as well. Obviously, Trump won, and his return to the White House signals a massive opportunity for, crypto-friendly innovation in the White House, which is absolutely massive. We need balanced frameworks for essential long-term stable crypto growth. And this part of this whole sort of, thing to get the ball moving, we need incredible companies like Exodus to make good donations. Like you guys did, the $1.3 million donation to Stand With Crypto, which emphasizes bipartisan support's role in robust pro-initiative policies. Again, and for the listeners at home, I do use Exodus. Exodus is one of my favorite hot wallets. It is literally so simple, so efficient. You download the app. You can have it on your computer. You can have it on your phone. You grab your seed phrase, obviously store that in a good place. Never show that to anyone. Please do not put that on your computer as well. Ideally, get something super secure. And literally you can buy, you can sell, you can swap, you can send. It is absolutely brilliant. And I've onboarded probably 2 or 3 dozen people. I give every single person Exodus because it's so freaking easy. But again, we'll get to that later on. Veronica, going back to you here, I'd love if you could talk about sort of Trump's win, his influence on the crypto market, and sort of segue that into regulatory reform as a bipartisan initiative.
Sure. Trump winning has turned out to be, at least so far, quite a boon to the industry. As you mentioned, Bitcoin hit nearly 95,000 this morning, but nearly. But and it's funny because everyone keeps saying, for months, people are saying, if Trump wins, Bitcoin's going to 100,000 by the end of the year. It's possible that we hit that well before the end of the year. But what it does signal is the loosening of some of the more aggressive positions taken by some of the regulatory agencies, most especially the SEC. Exodus has its own story with the SEC that blocked our uplisting earlier this year. And we're still, wrestling back and forth with the SEC to accomplish, listing our stock on a national exchange. But the SEC's come under fire. This SEC's come under fire for lots of, regulation by enforcement and litigation when our industry has been asking for clear rules of the road rather than carpet bombing with litigation. We're hopeful, the industry is very hopeful, and rightfully so, that that won't be the path forward with the coming administration. That, in fact, what's going to happen is we will get leadership in some of the agencies, the CFTC, the SEC, Treasury, that take a more, innovative and fostering business sort of approach. Meaning, they will give us rules of the road, which is what we've been promised for a long time. And as I said, since I've been speaking on crypto since 2011, I was recently looking at some of my slide decks, back when people used slide decks, from like 2014 and 2015. And some of my slides say, still waiting for, actual regulation on this area, still waiting for regulatory framework, still waiting for, I could still use those slides today.
14 years later, still valid.
Yeah. No, not 14 years later, about 10 years later, but still. It's pretty ridiculous that we've been clamoring. What other industry asks to be regulated, by the way? I mean, we want to have reasonable and appropriate regulation for our technology and business models, instead of trying to cram our new technology and business models into antiquated laws and regulations that don't make sense for what we're working with.
Well said there.
So we're hopeful. All of us are hopeful.
That was of everything you said there, and that was a great little riff, by the way. I love that line. I've never heard that before. Crypto is the only industry that's ever asked to be regulated. That is so good there. Now, I want to talk about sort of and again, I'm just a Canadian sitting on the sidelines. Obviously, I'm pretty well, into the trenches when it comes to the whole crypto thing, but I am not as familiar with the whole U.S. law and regulation as I don't want to say the average American, because I'm probably more so, but just an American who really knows what's going on in regards to the whole regulation thing. If I'm a betting man, and I am a betting man, I would say it's because the old regime, the Biden regime, is very much in bed with the big banks. The big banks don't want crypto, but now you have all the big banks getting into crypto. So it's like, what is the big reason, Veronica, why they were so anti-crypto and so anti-regulation for crypto? Because in my opinion, that seems like the easy sort of low-hanging fruit answer right there.
Why were the big banks anti-crypto, or why was the Biden administration anti-crypto?
Well, it's like, why was the Biden administration anti-crypto? Because they're so in bed with the big banks. The big banks don't want to lose power, but now the big banks are into crypto. So it's like, what's going on there? That's what I don't really get.
Right. So remember that crypto started a long time ago and everyone just thought it was a fad, right? Oh, this is a fad. It's going to go away. Didn't go away. Keeps expanding year over year. And no one likes to be disrupted, right? So the banks did not want crypto because no one wants to be disrupted. But upon, realizing maybe a couple of years ago, hey, crypto's not going away. We might as well see what we can do with it. Institutions are coming our way. You can sort of talk about the deep ethos of where crypto came out of, and it came out of the, bank collapse of 2008. right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
the financial collapse in 2008. So it is a little funny that it was created as sort of an alternative to a banking system, and now the banking system is not adopting crypto, but I'm saying, like, trying to get into it.
Yeah. No, 100% there. Next point I'd love to jump into is sort of the institutionalization of crypto education, and in particular for legislative clarity. The reason why there are no rules right now is because of the lack of education. There's not many lawmakers, there's not many senators, there's not many rule makers, if you will, to just sort of put them in an umbrella, who are really familiar with crypto. Very few of them have crypto exposure, very few of them know a lot of the crypto lingo, and they still think it's this sort of fake money that is, you can't touch or feel, and therefore it is absolutely worthless. Mind you, the biggest asset manager in the world, BlackRock, is literally pushing pavement every single day. What do we need to do in order to create, a lot of legislative clarity in regards to institutionalizing crypto education?
Well, you talk about institutionalizing crypto education. I'm not sure about institutionalizing it, but I can say that there are a lot of our trade associations, advocacy associations like Blockchain Association, do a lot of work in terms of trying to educate lawmakers and regulators about the technology and the use cases. And I personally have gone up to Capitol Hill a couple of times and made the rounds with, to various members of Congress, showing them, not just Exodus, but like talking to them about, what are your concerns about crypto? Why is it that you're worried about this, and trying to address their concerns and explain to them, like, well, I know that feels scary, but here's what's actually happening, and sort of, but education, people are afraid of what they don't know, what they don't understand. And so, I have taken seriously, my sort of commitment to educate people wherever I can. That was my house when I started in crypto, was by educating people about what crypto is. So I'm still trying to do that.
100%. Now, if you were in charge, now Trump, I believe it was today, I don't know the exact name of this position, but Trump is looking to hire a sort of pro-crypto chair to bring onto his team. If he named Veronica McGregor the head of this pro-crypto chair union, whatever you want to call it, and he gave you the keys to the crypto Ferrari, and he's like, okay, we got to make crypto pro-friendly in the States. We cannot let the US lose the opportunity. And it's already, I don't want to say it's been lost, but there are a hell of a lot of companies and hundreds of billions of dollars have gone offshore to the Dubais, the Singapores, the other parts of the world that have been more crypto friendly. But if you got the keys to that pro-crypto Ferrari, Veronica, what would you do? And I know this is a tough open-ended question here, but
yeah, that's an open-ended question.
If you had the whole thing, what would you do here? How would you make it happen? How would you make it work?
Well, let me start with just one thing, and that is, when companies go offshore, like any company go offshore, but if you're accessing U.S. customers or investors in the SEC's case, that's you're bound by those laws, right? So, if you can't just go park your company in the Caymans and still reach into the U.S. and not have to deal with U.S. regulation. But, what I would do would be to sit with industry stakeholders, find out what types of regulation make sense to address the concerns. And the concerns tend to be, money laundering, consumer protection, and facilitating crime. Those tend to be the broad strokes concerns of regulators and lawmakers. And so sitting down with people who understand the technology and understand the concerns, and try and come up with, creative problem solving, right? And figure out, how do we address your concerns without ruining this industry or regulating it out of existence, and also still keeping in mind all of those concerns, which are valid concerns. They're all valid concerns, but shoving, new tech into old laws it doesn't make sense. So I think you need to engage with the industry and voice your concerns, and then figure out together what makes sense.
Yeah, for sure. But you brought you brought up some great points there, but it's like, I see the data all the time. I mean, I'm Canadian. TD, who I bank with personally, TD Bank, like the second biggest bank in Toronto after RBC, Royal Bank of Canada. TD just got hit with I think it was a $1.4 billion fine for eliciting like narco drug trafficking money. It's like, and you're going to tell me that crypto is worse than the traditional banking system? Like, obviously I'm not going
to tell you that.
Of course, but I mean on a scale basis, because the traditional banking system is so much bigger, of course they are going to have, more dollars per capita that is used for money laundering or any type of negative financial sentiment, but like, if we're just going to call a spade here and be like, hey, well, who uses more money to launder and do terrible things? Like, it's TradFi. So, I mean, that's got to be one step,
TradFi
right?
and cash. I mean, let's
Yeah,
not forget, cash is still king when it comes to money
of course.
laundering
Yeah, of course.
and financing criminal activity. That cash is still king. And there's some statistic where, like 99% of the dollar bills,
Yeah.
in the United States are tainted with cocaine or something. Like, I don't remember the stat exactly, but it's a pretty astonishing number. And, and so that's what I mean by what makes sense here. And rather than say, well, the banks are doing a worse, what crypto can say, what our industry can say is, look, there are tools in place for us to address these concerns. And we can use other technology that makes sense for blockchain to address these concerns. And, it's not that, I don't think it does you very much good. You can say, well, Toronto Dominion or Deutsche Bank or whatever got hit with this massive fine for money laundering. But I think the better approach is to say, I understand this is a concern. Here's how the industry wants to address it. And here's why that's more effective than the way TradFi has addressed it.
Very well said there. Yeah. See, we need you in there. We need more people. We need more Veronicas knocking on friggin' Capitol Hill and making shit happen. I still don't understand why it's taking so long, but say la vie. But Veronica, we do need to take you want to throw something in the jar there?
No, I'm just saying when you say taking so long, I'm like, yeah, right. It's been.
I know it's way, way too long. We got to take a quick break and give a huge shout out to our sponsor of the show, Prime XBT. And when we get back, we are going to keep buzzing on crypto's influence in the election. We are going to talk a little bit more about Exodus's donation to Stand With Crypto, and we're going to take a deep dive into Exodus. Before then, huge shout out to Prime XBT, longtime friends and sponsors of the Crypto News podcast. We love these guys as they offer a robust trading system for both beginners and professional traders. It doesn't matter if you're a rookie or a vet, you can easily design and customize your layouts and widgets to best fit your trading style. Prime XBT is also running an exclusive promo for listeners of the Crypto News podcast. Use the promo code CryptoNews50, that is CryptoNews50, all one word, to receive 50% of your deposit credited to your trading account. Again, that is CryptoNews50, all one word, to receive 50% of your deposit credited to your trading account. And now back to the show with Veronica. Veronica, I want to jump back into the election for a second, as it was just such a big moment, not just for your incredible country, my neighbors to the south, but for the crypto industry as a whole. I've said on the podcast many a times leading up to the election, I believe there are 40 million crypto users in the States, and that is just the ones that have said they are crypto users. That's 10% of the American population. That's a pretty big chunk. I would say a good percentage of those that chunk, is perhaps, and again, I'm pulling this out of my ass, so, feel free to fire at me on Twitter if I'm wrong here, but I would say that a good chunk of that 40 million, those people are single issue voters, and the only thing they care about, not the only thing, the thing they care about the most is crypto. Now, Kamala's team didn't say anything about crypto. Trump's team said, hey, we're pro crypto now. Congrats, you just got 10% of the American Gen Pop. That is pretty powerful. I do not understand why Team Left did not do anything on that. But again, I am just a Canadian sitting on the sidelines. And this moves into my question for you. Crypto's influence, how big of a role did it play, and how crazy was it that it was pivotal in shaping this election? How wild was that?
It's very wild because there are plenty of people that you would think of as single issue voters. It's rather stunning that single issue voters would choose crypto as a single issue.
Literally.
But the reality is that there's a plenty of issues on the table here in this particular election. But the reality is, I spoke with a number of people who were single issue voters and were with crypto as that single issue, and they said, "Listen, I am doing it because either philosophically I believe in the power and the philosophy of cryptocurrency, or I've made a bunch of money and I want to make sure that I can protect my wealth, and I want also sovereignty over my wealth. I want to be able to control it myself." That's, the Exodus thing is that we're self-custody, right? And so we believe, to be not your keys, not your coins. So we are, definitely all about sovereignty over your own wealth. But there are plenty of people who wanted to make sure that, that their investments that they'd made were protected and that the industry was not continually penalized as it had been just for existing.
Yeah, 100% there. last thing on the election, then we are going to jump into Exodus. And again, the power of self-custody and how incredible your guys' app and platform is, and the team as well. I want to go back to the donation, the $1.3 million donation. Was this a no-brainer? Was this like right from the get-go, hey, we need to do this? Was this strictly for goodwill? Was this also like, hey, the SEC is currently screwing us right now for no reason? We've done everything right. Our books are wide open. We've given you everything you've wanted. It's just because we are one of the leaders in self-custody and you guys don't like that. Walk me through the whole thought process behind the $1.3 million donation to Stand With Crypto.
It's a very, very simple proposition. It was an important election. It was an existential election for our industry.
Yep.
And as such, basically for our company, right? And so we had an opportunity to push people in a bipartisan way to, we're not telling you which candidate to vote for, but please vote for, a pro-crypto candidate. And so we made a cash donation to Stand With Crypto, and we did an in-kind donation as well that allowed us to do media blitzes and send people to the Stand With Crypto site so that they could look at the ratings of each candidate and make their choices. There were lots of events. Stand With Crypto held lots of get out the vote events. And it was a no-brainer in that regard because, as I said, this election was existential for the industry, or it was, so we felt and continue to feel.
No, I completely agree with you. And I mean, heck, look at the reception so far. Look at the prices, and price aside, look at the sentiment. Like the amount of normie Web2 friends that have reached out to me since November 8th is absolutely wild. Like, and when that happens, they really care. Like I'm talking people, I had two people reach out to me last week who I've maybe spoke to thrice after university. And I graduated university in 2017. I'm born in 1995. Like, hey, Matt, should I buy this coin? Is it too late for Bitcoin? It's like, it's never too late for Bitcoin. Yes, buy some Bitcoin.
Right.
And when you do, put it on Exodus. But let's jump into Exodus now. Give the elevator pitch just for the listeners at home who aren't aware of what Exodus is. Then we'll get into some of the fun stuff here.
Sure. I mean, it's pretty easy to explain Exodus. We are a self-custody software wallet. Our interface, as you have said, is very easy to use. People refer to it as slick and beautiful. It is easy to use. And it allows you to interact with your digital assets. You can hodl, right? You can store them. You can send, receive. You can do swaps through our third-party API providers, right? So if you have a trading pair, you want to make a swap, we send you to a third party. We have an algorithm that. Yeah. So the trading itself happens by the third party, but and same with the staking. You can stake your assets, and we have a third-party staking provider. Likewise, we have fiat on-ramps, and those are all done by third parties too.
Yeah.
And so Exodus is, the motto, and it's my motto that I coined, is keep it effing simple.
I love it.
Or, make it effing simple. Make it effing simple. And I don't use the effing part, but I don't know what the audience is for this podcast.
Oh, no, you can drop F-bombs.
Yeah.
100%.
So it's definitely... it's the keep it fucking simple is my motto and almost war cry whenever someone says, what about this? What about that? It's keep it fucking simple because people want to know what's going on with their money. The best thing about self-custody is that we couldn't steal your money if we wanted to. Like, even if we wanted to, which we very much don't, we can't. And that's the not your keys, not your coins thing. You hold your private keys. The other thing is that we have world-class customer support. When I started at Exodus, we were answering support tickets within, I think it was 10 minutes. I think that's the metric I got.
Holy crap.
I think we're up over half an hour now. But I of course I don't deal with any of that stuff, but our customer support team is really second to none. And so if you have a problem, we are very much a user first, customer first organization. And and that's it. In the C-suite, we are always talking about what's best for the customer, and not what's best for us.
I mean, that's obviously whenever there's a request or whenever I'd like someone to come on the pod, it's always two-part, right? It's, one part guest, one part company. After seeing your bio, what you've done, it was a no-brainer. And I mean, I use Exodus almost every day. So this was one of the biggest no-brainers we've ever had on the pod. But One thing, and this is just for my Canadian friends who are listening, it's unfortunate that us Canadians, we can't use our credit cards or our bank cards to directly onboard to Exodus because the Canadian banks block any type of crypto transaction. So we still have to use a centralized exchange in Canada, but the amount of friends I've told, hey, once you're, and I usually, if anyone from Trezor is listening, my apologies, but I usually always say, use one of the big Canadian exchanges to onboard. And once you've done that, if you want to keep it hot and mess around with some crypto, stake it, whatever, throw it on Exodus. If you want to keep it cold, get a ledger, you're all set, right? But not your keys, not your coins is still one of the most important parts. And I still don't think, Veronica, that people have really, the normies don't understand it until they've been into it enough and sort of lost it. I also feel like a lot of people come online, and you guys do have awesome features like the staking and the swapping and whatnot, but I feel like a lot of normies don't come online and want to stake and hold that crypto and hodl it and really care about self-custody. They just want to they want to throw in $1,000 and turn into $100,000 as soon as possible. You know what I mean?
Sure. And if you want to do that, you can still do that with Exodus. But, self-custody is important because even if you keep it for a short period of time, if someone hacks into a centralized exchange, or if the centralized exchange collapses or something like that, which has happened, very large ones, you lose your money. And that is why we think self-custody is so important, is because, like I said, we can't steal from you. If someone hacks into the Exodus system, they can take Exodus's money, but they can't take yours.
Yeah. Again, just for the listeners at home, once you write down that seed phrase, it is literally yours, unless someone finds your seed phrase and your Face ID or whatever you're using for your Exodus account, then you're hooked. I also wouldn't do that. Yes. I would only recommend a password, because if something happens, you get drugged or whatever, they can easily just scan your face. So never do that as well. I don't even know if Exodus allows that, but I just have a password on mine. But regardless, just some good housekeeping tips.
And all of those things need to be kept. I mean, you have to keep your face in a safe, but you have to keep, a password or seed phrase or something like that in a place that, don't write it on a Post-it and stick it on your keyboard.
Exactly. Veronica, this has been an absolute treat. We're just getting a little tight for time. Got to wrap up here. Any big Exodus news before this goes live on Monday, the 25th? I believe it is Monday, the 25th.
Big Exodus news. We are hoping that we are in the last round of our comments from the SEC, and we'll be able to uplist soon on the New York Stock Exchange, which is something we've been trying to do since May. So that's big Exodus news. And we always have new features being launched in new product lines. So, iterating and trying to make sure people have control of their own crypto.
I love it. And before we let you go, can you please let our listeners know where they can find you personally and, of course, Exodus online and on socials?
Sure. I mean, Exodus is an easy one. It's exodus.com. And I'm on LinkedIn. I am not on Twitter, and I don't have time to keep up with making a bunch of tweets. I'm busy. But so I'm on LinkedIn, and it's just my name. For Exodus, we are also on LinkedIn. We are also on Twitter, very active on Twitter, Reddit, basically all of the socials. And I believe the handles are just literally Exodus.
I'm just checking the Twitter right now. If you'd like to follow Exodus on Twitter, it is at Exodus_IO. That is EXODUS_IO. Again, Exodus.io, and you will see the yellow verified check mark with them as well. Veronica, appreciate it. Great episode. Again, got some homework to do. It's great to have someone who's so in tuned and a true expert on the crypto legal side of things. We need a lot more use in this world to help move the needle on the legal front. And hopefully we can get the lawmakers and the legislators to finally open up the floodgates and let us work some magic. But really appreciate it. Love you and the team. You guys are incredible. And again, literally one of my favorite apps in all of crypto. So this was an absolute treat, and can't wait to have you on for round 2.
Terrific. Thanks so much, Matt.
Folks, what an episode with Veronica McGregor, Chief Legal Officer at Exodus. We touched a little bit of everything, took a deep dive into Exodus, one of the best and my favorite hot wallets on the planet. We touched a little regulatory reform, crypto's impact on the election, the post-Trump mayhem, and the best type of mayhem possible. Bitcoin almost hit 95K, everything's going parabolic, and some crypto sentiment and outlook post-election. Again, this was huge. Huge shout out to Veronica and the team for making this happen. If you guys enjoyed this one, and I hope you did, please do subscribe. It would mean the world to my team and I. And speaking of the team, love you guys. Thank you so much for everything. And back to the listeners, keep on growing those bags and keep on staying healthy, wealthy, and happy. Love you guys, and we'll see you on the next one. Ciao.